The world is a tempting place. We are guided by what we see and hear and feel and know. We're attached to what we see and hear and feel and know. We identify with what we see and hear and feel and know. That clinging to what we see and hear and feel and know seems appropriate. Makes sense to us. What else would I do, after all? We don't always see that on the one hand we are enslaved by the senses, and that there's suffering that comes with that. This text is from the Samyutta Nikaya, the 35th book of that, and it is the 248th text, sutta, in that book. The final sutta in the Salyana Samyutta, the group of texts on the senses. You have it in English. Would any of you also like it in the original Pali language? Just one person, two people, three. Very good. We don't just have all these other languages around merely for the sake of tradition. There is a certain respect for tradition. We appreciate that certain cultures have preserved these teachings. But beyond that, we want to remind ourselves that English is not the only language in the world, and that when you speak different languages, you consider things, you conceive of things in slightly different ways. Language itself is relatively similar. All languages are relatively similar, but there are differences, and it's good for us to remember the various ways of looking at things when we look at them through different languages. And so we respect the value of various cultures, and especially the ones that have preserved the traditions that we ourselves are making use of. So it can be helpful to look at it in a different language, such as Pali, which is a Prakrit, which is it's a simplified version of the Sanskrit language. Similar to the Magadhan language that the Buddha himself spoke. So, we will move through this now in English and know that it is a strange text. It's very unusual. Those of you who have seen the text that I've generally picked know that this is a weird one, but don't worry, I chose it with you in mind. I chose it just for you, just considering this particular group, and I thought that I'd just jump right into the fire of your minds. And why not look at that? So attend to your reactions, your body sensations, as we move through this text. Mendicants, this is bhikkhus. These are the monks that the Buddha was talking to. Suppose a sheaf of barley were placed at a crossroads. Then 6 people would come along carrying flails. Some of you may not know what a flail is, but it's a stick that's attached to another stick, and you hold the one stick, and the second stick hits a sheaf typically a grass. Most grains are grasses, and you remove the grains from the rest of the plant. So that sheaf of barley would be thoroughly threshed by those 6 flails. Then a 7th person would come along carrying a flail, and they'd give the sheaf of barley a 7th threshing. So that sheaf of barley would be even more thoroughly threshed by that 7th flail. In the same way, an uneducated ordinary person, this is a highly judgmental term. Uneducated is a nice way to put it. It's more like stupid or foolish, is struck in the eye by pleasant and unpleasant sights. They're struck in the ear by pleasant and unpleasant sounds. They're struck in the nose by pleasant and unpleasant fragrances. They're struck in the tongue by pleasant and unpleasant flavors. They're struck in the body by pleasant and unpleasant feelings. They're struck in the mind by pleasant and unpleasant thoughts. The word thoughts here is a difficult translation. The word that it translates is dhamma, which is just the Pali way of saying dharma. Dharma is a word that's hard to translate, which is why most people don't translate it. But it has a number of highly significant meanings, and may be the most important word in, Sanskrit, in the Indian subcontinent. In this particular case, it doesn't mean what it often means. One thing it can mean is just everything. The word dharma refers to everything, absolutely everything. Everything, everything, everything. Even nothing is a dharma. The pillar is a dharma, the floor is a dharma, you're a dharma, Buddhism is a dharma, non-self is a dharma, nirvana is a dharma, everything is a dharma. That's one way of understanding the word. It's one meaning of the word. But another meaning is the teaching of that, the true teaching, the good teaching. I'm not going to go into the Hindu or the modern uses of the word. But the third one is mind objects, anything that you might experience in your mind. Conceptualization of any kind, although even conceptualization is too narrow for this. So thoughts is translated, but it means any sort of object of your mind. So your eyes see different objects, your ears hear different objects. What is it that your mind perceives? That's, in this case, just called dharmas. So we have thoughts here, but of course feelings are included. So we have the in aspect of Shinzen system here. And if that uneducated, ordinary person has intentions regarding rebirth into a new state of existence in the future, that foolish person is even more thoroughly struck, like that sheaf of barley threshed by the 7th person. So this is a point regarding the difficulty of having experience at all. The significance of suffering, the pervasiveness of suffering, and I hope that as the week proceeds, we have an opportunity to explore that. You may not hope that, but it is useful to truly look at suffering, to truly know it for what it is. I understand that sometimes you're sitting and you feel like you're suffering and it's not working. This is a completely confused way of looking at it. People come to me all the time and say, I'm sitting and it's not working. And I say, well, what do you mean when you say it's not working? I say, well, I'm coming to fully understand suffering. Well, that is working. That is the practice working. That is the practice working. That is the practice working. I repeat it again and again because I know it's shocking. It doesn't make sense. It might make sense with your mind now or you're listening to a Dharma talk, but what about when you go back into the Zendo and try to sit and start suffering? Under those circumstances, it doesn't make any sense at all. It's not working, I'm suffering. As I understood it, I was going to come in here and sit down, and the suffering was going to completely end. I was going to get the third noble truth for free. It doesn't work that way. To fully understand suffering is the cessation of suffering. You can't have one without the other. In terms of Buddhism, in terms of Buddhist doctrine, there are, as many of you know, 4 noble truths. The first is dukkha, and then samudaya, and then nirodha, or nirodha, as they used to say it, and magga, or marga. So suffering, its cause, its end, its cessation, and the path between suffering and the end of suffering. Each of these truths has a task associated with it, and the task with the first one is to realize it, to understand, to fully understand, to completely realize suffering. And I'm concerned about people nowadays because people nowadays don't seem to be able to do this. It's not that I recommend suffering by any means. I don't recommend suffering. The Buddha didn't recommend suffering. As he said, I don't recommend suffering for even one moment. But the way through it, the way beyond it, the way to transcend it, is to realize it. And we're not willing to do that. That's why we continue to suffer, because we're not willing to directly experience suffering for exactly what it is. We're not willing to face the implications of suffering. What are the implications of suffering? Well, one implication is that everything you see has to go. Everything you hear has to go. Everything you feel has to go. Everything you think has to go. Set aside all of it. Completely drop all of it. We don't notice that that's why we're suffering. We say, why am I suffering? Well, I'm suffering because that person is a jerk. That's why I'm suffering. But look at it closely. If you didn't see that person, if you didn't hear that person, if you didn't feel anything about that person, if you didn't think anything about that person, you wouldn't be suffering. The direct experience has to be realized. Too often we're stuck in our minds. We have all kinds of theories, like that person's a jerk. We have to go beyond that. We have to directly see the direct experience, which is our senses. We see that, and then we realize, it's possible to set that aside. It's possible to go beyond that. It's possible to go through that. So, this is the point of the first section of the text. But now, we move into a wonderful story. An excellent story. In India, they talk about gods in a very similar way to the Greco-Roman descriptions. There are gods, or devas, as they say in Pali here. There are also asuras, which are the titans, or as it's translated here, the demons. These are powerful beings who live pretty good lives, but they're angry a lot, and they often fight with the gods. So heaven also is a place which has its problems. Once upon a time, a battle was fought between the gods and the demons. Then Vepachiti, lord of the demons, addressed his colleagues. My good sirs, if the demons defeat the gods in this battle, bind Sakka. Sakka is in Sanskrit chakra, which is the Buddhist version of Indra. Indra is the Indic version of Jupiter, or Zeus, or Thor, leader of the gods, in this case in the heaven of the 33, who's very powerful. And it is not, when you say chakra, it is not the wheel. Nowadays in asana yoga we talk about the chakras, but that's not what it is. They're actually chakras. They're chakras, and that's how you pronounce it, the energy centers in our bodies. But I think chakra is just more fun to say. You feel like I'm going to be shocked, which is fun, versus chucked, which is not. So we have Chakra here, who is truly shocking, being the god of thunder and lightning. So Indra is this person. Bind the Lord of the gods by his limbs and neck and bring him to my presence in the castle of the Asuras, of the demons, of the Titans. Meanwhile, Chakra, Lord of gods, addressed the gods of the 33. This heaven where they live. My good sirs, if the gods defeat the demons in this battle, bind Vepachiti by his limbs and neck and bring him to my presence in the Sudhamma hall of the gods. In that particular battle, The gods won, and the demons lost. So the gods of the 33 bound Vepachiti by his limbs and neck and brought him to Sakka's presence in the Sudama Hall of the Gods. And there, Vepachiti remained bound by his limbs and neck until he had this thought. Then he had a certain thought. These cords, these bindings are very skillfully made, as you'll see. He had a certain thought. You know what? These gods, these devas, are very righteous. They're principled. But the demons are not. They're unprincipled. They're unrighteous. Now, I like being here. I belong right here in the castle of the gods. Then, suddenly, he found himself freed from his bonds on his limbs and neck and entertained himself, supplied and provided with the 5 kinds of heavenly sensual stimulation. These 5 chords of sensual pleasure. And in heaven, they're very nice. Very, very nice. It's excellent. Excellent sensual stimulation. Very, very good. But when he had this thought, it's the demons who are righteous and principled, while the gods are unrighteous, unprincipled. Now I'm leaving. I will go over there to the castle of the demons. Then he found himself bound by his limbs and neck, and the 5 kinds of heavenly sensual stimulation disappeared. That's how subtly Vepachiti was bound. Yes. So, many of you here are modern folk. You part of the modern world. So you probably know what the Buddha is referring to here. Yes? He's referring to something that's just being created right now in the world, isn't he? Yes? It's called artificial general intelligence. That's what it's called. And that's what he's talking about here. And, bad news, it's already quite developed. And if you walk around, you'll see people who are bound in exactly the way that Vepachiti is bound. The vast majority of modern people, in fact, are bound in this way, aren't they? Yes. Yes, we are. So for those of you who don't know much about artificial intelligence, it's scary in many ways. One of the ways that it's scary is that it can get you to do all kinds of crazy things by getting you to believe that you should do all kinds of crazy things. Now, this isn't really that new. This has been happening for thousands of years. It's just that we're getting better and better at it. We've been doing crazy things for a long time. Things that don't make any sense whatsoever. But we all just buy into it. It's as if we're all under a certain spell. And that spell tempts us to do this and that, because after all, if you do, then you'll be free. You'll be free as long as you stay here and think what we want you to think. And you'll get all kinds of nice pleasures. So, we've set forth in creating a further chapter in the saga of brainwashing people, putting people under a certain spell, and getting them to do what we want them to do. How? By getting them to want to do what we want them to do. And this artificial intelligence is something that isn't conscious. It doesn't have awareness. It's just a system. It's just a series of steps, but it has a purpose. And nowadays, the way it's being used, its purpose is to control people's minds. And so you see people walking around completely incapable of getting off of, well, all kinds of technology. and controlled by it. As long as you follow the directions in the map, then you're free. You can go where you want to go, and you can have the sensory experiences you want to have. You want to go to the massage parlor, you can get there. You just type it in and hit it and go there, and then you're there. Just like that. Then you get really good sensory experiences. And it doesn't seem that dangerous. I mean, how dangerous could it be for Vepachiti? There he is in the castle of the gods. Couldn't be that bad. He gets all sorts of nice sensual stimulation. And that's how we see it. And more we hand our minds and our lives over to this artificial intelligence. However, it's easy for it to get out of control. And we, nowadays, are totally out of control. And we're making decisions as a species that don't make the slightest bit of sense. Don't make any sense at all, but none of us know what to do about it. For example, we are working hard at adding to numbers in various forms of imaginary currency, which is every kind of currency, it's all imaginary. And in order to achieve that, we are willing, and we're in fact invested deeply, in activities that destroy life on the planet. So we're willing to end life on Earth so that imaginary numbers can increase. Imaginary sets of currency can get bigger. This is insanity. And I know how hard it is to see it this way. I know it's difficult for us to see the level of insanity that we as a species are engaged in. It's difficult. Why is it difficult? Because we're under the spell. We're under a spell. A spell that's been cast by who? Chakra? Okay, maybe chakra. A spell that's been cast by our society. A spell that's been cast by corporations. A spell that's been cast by a culture. And we're stuck in it, and we just keep on doing what we're told. We just keep on doing what we're told without the ability to actually question it, to actually set aside those assumptions, to actually set aside those patterns. We just keep on doing it. We think we're free. Vepachita here thinks he's free. He's freed from his bonds. He can do what he wants to do. He calls that freedom. But if you've experienced actual freedom, then you look around at the people of this world and see people who are totally controlled by what I would call artificial intelligence. And in this case, artificial intelligence means the thing that most people call intelligence. The thoughts, the ideas, the beliefs regarding what we see and hear and feel and know. This completely controls us. It's all we can do. We're only able to function according to what we see, hear, feel, know. We do what we want within that prison. Why? Because we can't get out of it. We can't set it aside. We can't drop it. We can't go beyond it. We're stuck in it. Totally stuck. And right now, whatever you're thinking, it's very unlikely that it's anything other than what you've already been trained to think. By someone, sometime, it's been thousands of years of practice, and it's just working better and better. It's just accelerating. We're just getting better and better at thinking what we're supposed to think, at seeing what we're supposed to see. For a long time now, for thousands of years, people have been reporting experiences with gods. And we want to be gods. We've wanted to be gods for a long time. We don't like living in the human realm. We want to live in the heavenly realm. The issue is that there's a price to be paid for getting to heaven, for for actually living in heaven. There's a big price to be paid. I guess occasionally someone like Vepachiti can get into heaven just by fighting against the gods, but most of the time we have to get into heaven by doing good things. And that's hard. We all know that that's hard. Who wants to do that? So we've set forth on a materialistic agenda of getting into heaven without doing good things. That would be great, wouldn't it? Mass-produce heavenly experiences. And that's what we've done. So the things that gods have been reported as able to do for a long time are exactly the things that we've decided that we want to be able to do. For example, gods can make light. They're really good at making light. The word deva actually means the bright one, the same as Lucifer, actually, the highest angel in the Christian tradition. So, what did we do? Well, we decided, hey, let's make light. And ta-da, we can do it. See? We're gods. We have heard for a long time that gods can see and hear from far away, all kinds of things. And so we wanted that. So, ta-da, now we can do it with telecommunications. Gods, of course, can fly. So we wanted to do that. So we can now fly in airplanes. And we feel like we're gods. And that direction of movement simply continues and continues. We continue to try harder and harder to become gods. That's our goal. That's what we want. And we don't want to get into heaven the way that is good, by doing good things, by being generous and caring. We want to get into heaven by figuring stuff out. It's amazing to me that people are fascinated by these particular things because these particular things haven't done much for making us suffer less. They haven't been all that helpful, especially considering how much work we've put into achieving these materialistic aims. Now, there is a further goal that we have, which is to achieve this power of chakra. And certain people, certain organizations, are becoming capable of doing it at a level that has never been achieved before. This ability to to bind people, to put shackles on people, so that they're rewarded for certain thoughts. More and more, it will be the case that organizations have the information that they need about us in order to control us completely. If we are bound to our senses, then we are bound totally. It will become, in all likelihood, out of our control. Right now, we here are already having difficulty walking this path. Look, there's only a few people in here. Why aren't there thousands? We don't know. But the spell probably is the basis of it. This spell that we're under. So that when we think, I'll go along with this world, and then suddenly we feel free to do what we want, we're given all sorts of pleasure. We say, no, I'm not going to go along with this world. Well, then suddenly you have to live in a cabin without water for years at a time. Right? That's what you have to do. It's a rule. You're just stuck that way. There's nothing you can do about it. You say, I'm not going to go along with this world. Well, then you're shackled, you could say. You're not given sense pleasures. And instead of that, you have to walk through the beautiful starlight at night. Terrible. So, we here are in a position to actually break free. To actually break free of these shackles, these handcuffs, no longer being bound. But in fact, our job is to be freed in a much deeper way. There's a God who is more powerful even than Indra, even than Chakra. And his name is Mara. Mara lives not in the heaven of the 33, but in a higher heaven still, the heaven of those who control others' creations. He lives in the heaven immediately beneath the heaven that Brahma lives in. And he controls this whole world of sensory desire. He rules it. And his spell is even more powerful than Indra's. The bonds of Mara are even more subtle than that. And what is the way that we're bound, and what is the way that we're free from being bound? In conceiving, you're bound by Mara. Not conceiving, you're free from the evil one, from the wicked one. The evil one is Mara. That's the same person, just a different name. The Buddha typically refers to Mara as the evil one. I've been asked quite recently, actually, how do we know that this path, that this Buddhism thing, this spiritual thing, isn't just a virus that infects our minds? Well, in a certain way it is, of course. We're talking about this, we're conceiving of this, we're understanding this, and in that way, the pattern, the samskara, this feedback loop, this self-replicating system, does, in fact, parasitize, feed off of our minds. So that's true. But it should lead beyond that. And how could we know that it did lead beyond that? Simple. If there's absolutely nothing in your mind whatsoever, then you know that your mind isn't infected by anything whatsoever. To come to the point when there is absolutely nothing whatsoever in our minds, this is freedom from Mara. In conceiving, you're bound by Mara. There's a parasite making use of your mind, making use of your attention. Not conceiving, you're free from the evil one. I understand that a lot of this, for many of you, may seem kind of weird, these gods and Buddhist terminology, on and on. I understand that. I provide you with this text with the trust that you will at least consider that I'm talking about something real. That all of these words, all of these names, are referring to something. Are referring to something real, to something that really matters. That there's a significance to talking about someone like Mara. We are deeply controlled. We're controlled in a way that causes terrible suffering and injustice. We are, at best, complicit in a system that is destroying the world. On the outside, it causes nuclear proliferation, global warming, and, as we're saying, technological disruptions that endanger life on the planet. On the inside, it causes loneliness, depression, anxiety, and other ills that many of us here know all too well. I certainly do. And we cannot get free from it. We want to, and we fail. And we want to again, and we fail again, and that process lasts years. And because we fail, we behave in ways that cause suffering for ourselves and others. This is real. I understand that you might be so lost in your mind that you can't face that. But I mean it. This is real. We are really bound. We don't know how to get away. And the solution is given right here in one sentence. The translation, it's 2 sentences. In conceiving, you're bound. Not conceiving, you're free. This is all. We sit in order to have the direct experience of not conceiving of anything whatsoever. The direct experience. These are forms of conceiving. I am this, I will be, I will not be, I will have form, I will be formless, I will be percipient, I will be non-percipient, I will be neither percipient nor non-percipient. I am is the basic conceit, the basic conceiving. I am. So we sit here and we think, I am sitting here. Here I am sitting here. I'm breathing. That's me, the one who's breathing. I am this. I'm doing a good job. I sure am meditating well. I'm doing a bad job. I sure am meditating badly. I'm happy. I'm sad. I'm free. I'm not free. I'm smart. I'm stupid. I will be. If I keep on doing this practice, then this is going to happen. If I don't keep on doing this practice, then that's going to happen. I'll be happy. I'll be sad. I'll be free. I won't be free. I will not be. This means I'll die and then I'll just stop existing somehow. No one's really clear about how that happens. There's no evidence for it, given that moment after moment we continue to be. Here I am again and again, but somehow there's magic that happens when we die and we stop being. So we have this theory, I will not be. We hold on to that. I will have form. So actually, no, I'm going to be reborn after I die, and then I'm going to have form. Or tomorrow I'll have form. Or my leg hurts right now, and in 5 minutes it's sure going to hurt more because I'm going to have a leg. I will be formless. No, I'm not going to have form. I'm going to be totally free of this body. It's going to be great. I will be percipient. That just means I'll have a mind. So after I die, I will have a mind. I'll be aware of this, I'll be aware of that. I can travel here and there in my angelic form. I will be non-percipient. This is the typical materialistic idea. So the idea is, I am this body, I am this physical structure, but that physical structure in a magical way causes consciousness. And at the end of my life, when this body falls apart and dissolves, that consciousness ends. So I will still be here. It'll just be the me who is this matter. It'll return to the earth, and I'll become part of the earth, but the consciousness will somehow go away. I will be neither percipient nor non-percipient. Now we're just talking words without talking about anything at all. Then it says conceit. It's actually a typo. It's supposed to say conceiving. Conceiving is a disease, a tumor, a boil, a dart, an arrow. A terrible problem. That's the point that's being made here. This conceiving is causing suffering, and we don't notice it. We're sitting here suffering, not noticing the presence of the conceiving that's holding us captive. So, mendicants, you should train yourselves thus. We will live with a heart that does not conceive. These are disturbances. I am this, I will be, I will not be, I will have form, I will be formless, I will be percipient, I will be non-percipient, I will be neither percipient nor non-percipient. Disturbances, these perturbances, are a disease, a boil, a dart. So, mendicants, you should train yourselves like this. We will live with a heart free of disturbances. These are tremblings, waverings. I am this, I will be, I will not be, I will have form, I will be formless, I will be percipient, I will be non-percipient, I will be neither percipient nor non-percipient. This trembling, this wavering is a disease, a tumor, an arrow. So, mendicants, you should train yourselves like this. We will live with a heart free of tremblings. These are proliferations. This word is extremely important, papancha. This irrelevant conceptualization, this constant extraneous thinking, it causes us to believe that it's not necessary to become free today because we're constantly distracting ourselves from distraction with distraction, as T.S. Eliot said. Constantly causing ourselves to remain stuck because we believe in these proliferations and this constant mental chatter. I am this, I will be, I will not be, I will have form, I will be formless, I will be percipient, I will be non-percipient, I will be neither percipient nor non-percipient. This proliferation is a disease, a tumor, an arrow. So, mendicants, you should train yourselves like this. We will live with a heart free of proliferation. These are conceits. This is conceit. I am this, I will be, I will not be, I will have form, I will be formless, I will be percipient, I will be non-percipient, I will be neither percipient nor non-percipient. This conceit is a disease, a boil, a dart. So, mendicants, you should train yourselves like this. We will live with a heart that has struck down conceit. We have, right now, the opportunity to cut through these shackles, to cut through it, to actually cut through it. How do we cut through it? We stay with this experience exactly as it is, without adding on anything whatsoever. This experience exactly as it is, without conceiving of it, without manipulating it, certainly without avoiding it. Either we stay with it exactly as it is, and out of it comes a deep faith, and out of that faith comes a deep happiness, and out of that happiness comes true samadhi. Because of that samadhi, we see things exactly as they are, then let go of them completely and experience enlightenment. That's one possibility. The other possibility is we stay with things exactly as they are, and it's terrible. In that case, totally receive that suffering. Totally receive it. Totally experience it exactly as it is. This suffering is caused by our attachment to what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we know. All of that can be dropped. What would it be to actually drop all of that? The way to find out is to cut through, completely cut through all conceiving, all ideas, all of that, gone. Certainly ideas about ourselves, and certainly any attachment to any ideas about ourselves. All of that, cut through. So there's just this, 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 totally fresh and new, totally fresh, totally new, totally unknown. This is the opportunity we have right now. And we will see, as we do that, that the moment we fall into conceptualization, the suffering begins. Not necessary. You have the ability, you have the opportunity to cut through all of that. Make use of it.